Good morning, friends. I think we are live. I think so too. It's a pleasure introducing you friends to this group of graduate scholars from Harvard School of Education. We have recently conceived Education India initiative, through which they are going to mentor teachers, students, educators, policymakers from India and maybe from rest of South Asia also, about the need for education reforms in our part of the world. So I'll be passing on the mic for a round of introductions. And meanwhile, we'll also be asking you to join us with your questions. You can ask your questions about the entire education system, how possibly we can go ahead from here, and what are the problems and what are the possible solutions. So here we go.
Hello everyone, good evening. So happy to interact with people back on the other side of the world. Yeah, my name is Murali and I'm from Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, and I've been working as a fellow of Teach for India and also with an NGO called Bhumi, designing curriculum for the supplementary education space. And also I've been traveling around visiting alternative schools in the rural spaces. So I care about decentralizing education and making education as relevant to the communities as possible. And more work that I see in the society is trying to connect to our own immediate environment and then connecting to the outer world. So know about what is the environment around you, what are the possibilities around you, and then also connect to the bigger picture. Yeah, that's what I care about, and I call it native curriculum. Yeah. Now passing it on to Kumkum.
Good evening, friends. My name is Kumkum and I am from Delhi. And before coming to the Graduate School of Education, I was working in the education space as a freelancer, and I work with an NGO called Yuva Parivartan, which works with school dropouts and how vocational education and livelihood training can basically change their lives because they don't have access to formal education, schools, colleges. So how can we find alternate ways to employ these people and help them make better their lives? The main areas I was working on with students from school age, college age, and young professionals was on life skills and financial literacy, where I think that these skills are very important to be learned early and which our current formal schooling systems are not doing well. So I'm trying to understand how to incorporate these skills into the current schooling system as per the new policy reforms of skill development, of national skill qualification framework and other policies. And what are the loopholes from the policy end, basically. We have very beautiful policies on paper, they are well thought and well documented, but when it comes to implementation, there are loopholes from the state capacity side, from at the district level, at the school level. So I'm trying to understand those loopholes and how to cater them from the policy perspective while designing and implementing. Thank you.
Some people are writing that the video, the audio is not clear. Can you please keep the mic a bit closer?
Hello everyone, it's really a big pleasure talking to all of you. My name is Payal and I've been working back in India with non-profits like Azim Premji Foundation and Kaivalya Education Foundation for the last 10 to 12 years. My experience has largely been in the large-scale system reform, and one of the things across these 12 years that has troubled me consistently is that how there is this general perception that government school teachers, government school administrators do not want to work. I mean, there's a challenge to their will, their intention, and I think that's a really disturbing trend in a country like India, where almost 70% of the education is dispensed through the public education system. So I think what I really want to work on is this whole idea of creating a really professional identity for teachers and administrators, and also helping people understand that the system has a context. It is not devoid of a context, and it has its own concerns and it has its own problems. That doesn't mean that the invisibility of the context creates a perception which labels most of the people as redundant in the system. So I would really like to direct all my efforts in making the public education system as professional as possible.
Hello everybody, good evening. घर पे लोगों से बात करके बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. My name is Aditi. I am studying international education policy here at Harvard. Before this, when I was in class 11, I was really troubled by how everything we were doing was about exams. So I dropped out of school and I pursued open schooling, which was a really flexible, good option. And that's got me thinking about how in India, everything is decided by the examinations that we need to do. And that's got me interested in three things. One, like Murli said, what are alternative ways of designing schools? Everything doesn't have to be rote learning, doesn't have to be, exam prep all the time. The second is, if we only have people who are in the practice of rote learning for exams, we don't have a thinking and a questioning democracy. So we really need to reimagine spaces and environments where people can ask questions without fear. And that's something we need to develop early in children. And the third thing is that I'm interested in what are the skills that we want to build in our children apart from academic skills. So creativity, critical thinking, with all the challenges facing the world, it's going to be really important that we figure out what are the skills we want children to build and how we can do that. So these are my three areas of interest.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you Faisal for arranging this, setting this up. I'm very excited. My name is Sanjul Bhakri. I have been living in the US for the past 2 years and been working in IT over the past decade. And one of the reasons that I would want to do a master's, I am pursuing my school leadership program in LGSC, which is the Harvard Graduate School of Education, is to build schools which are acting as platforms, not just tools to build engineers or doctors or lawyers. Just a context, we as 1.3 billion Indians, we produce around 30 million engineers every year, but we did not even get one gold medal in the Olympics. So we want schools to think about the overall development of students, not just the curriculum design and curriculum cognitive skills. That's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Mirnaz and I'm very happy to be here and sharing this space with all my colleagues. I have been working over the last 3 years in a special needs lab school back home in India. And while being at this school, I've realized that the teachers and parents have the greatest intentions for children with learning disabilities, but we often don't know how to cater to their needs, and there seems to be a limited understanding in this area. I've also noticed that from families, there's still a stigma attached to with educating these students, and therefore I feel while there's
Yeah.
oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
While there's limited
Sorry.
So I think my goal is similar to what Aditi was sharing. I want to understand how learning can be personalized to cater to these students. If some students want or study best at home, they should have that opportunity, and how we can capitalize on those resources.
Thank you. Hey everybody, I'm Viveka. It's so nice to talk to you all. I'm here in the Learning and Teaching program at Harvard. I worked as a fellow with Teach for India. I taught middle school for 2 years. I taught 7th and 8th standard. I taught maths and English. After that, I worked for a year in Chicago in different after-school programs and in-school programs that supplemented the classroom. So I'm very interested in how we can reimagine schools, just as Murli, Aditi, and Mirna said. How can we reimagine them? How can we make it connected to the whole child? And especially, how can we empower teachers? And how can we help them change their practices so that they can cater to all aspects of the child? And how can they understand what the child is learning and support that?
So can we talk a little bit about our experiences with the American education system? Now that we have been here, I'm sure all friends would want to know about how American education system or how Western education system, many of you have worked in Europe also, how it is different from Indian education system, how the classroom here is different, how the teacher is different, how the entire teaching learning experience is different. Maybe we can share a couple of experiences about that. If you can maybe help us with the volume there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for the friends who are writing that the internet signal in Kashmir is weak. I was not aware about that. Maybe we could have rescheduled this podcast. But I'm sure a lot of people have still joined us. Maybe those of us who cannot join us live this time can still watch this video maybe later on. Thank you. So we are talking about the experiences with American education system.
One example that I quote is in my undergrad, I used to have classes from 8:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the evening. So it's almost like you have, do the math, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so 40 hours of class. And the amount of workload related to 40 hours wouldn't be that much. But here I have maybe 3 hours of class a day, but the effort that I put to prepare for that is almost like 10 hours, 15 hours related to that. So here I feel education is a lot more intrinsic, where people bring in their motivation and enrich the space around, rather than just a listener mode, but an active participatory mode, which is something that I enjoy a lot. Yeah.
So I think it would be very interesting if I talk about my experience here. So how is it, as Murli was also saying, that it's all intrinsic. The focus is on the student, and you are driving your own course here. You have too much autonomy over what you want to study, what kind of package to
Basically, what's it like? You have a whole range of courses out of which you can choose, and then you get to choose. You get to pick your own choice of courses depending on the kind of interests which you have. Maybe Kumkum can maybe project the voice till we get our mic back.
Okay, so what happens is you are directing your own learning. You have autonomy and flexibility to choose whatever you want to study. It can be anything in your school, outside your school. If you think you want to marry behavioral economics with how it can be taught in the classroom, or how design thinking can be applied to policy. So all these kind of interdisciplinary approaches can be are available here, and you're free to choose them. So you just have to work on what you think is good for you, and you have all the resources here. So the entire approach of where in India it's more directed by the teacher, it's here directed by yourself, and the professors, and the system is here to facilitate what you want to do.
You can pull the chair close to the laptop just until we get more cells.
I've got my it's okay. You can talk about it.
I think it's very similar to what Kumkum just described here. It's the so it's like a menu. It's like a huge menu available to you based on what interests that you may have. I think what happened with me personally was also that the availability of menu gave me more understanding of what all is possible within my interest area. So when I came here, I was imagining learning and teaching to be still from my frame of reference, that this is the XYZ things that I wanted to do. But when I looked at the 100 things that were available here, it also opened my mind to think about learning and teaching in a completely different kind of a way. So I think that's the function of options, this whole thing of options that played for me. Another thing that I think is working really well for me here is the accessibility to professors. It's not an extremely hierarchical relationship with your professors that you share. They are really accessible. You can go to them with any sort of question. They can be your brainstorming partners and not just somebody who would like kind of tell you what to do, but they can really partner in thinking through the questions, the thoughts, the basic vague ideas that you might be grappling with. So I think that's an interesting experience in the sense that I think that is what we are trying to turn around in India. This whole tradition of Guru Shishya Pranali, jo hamare desh mein chalta aa raha hai, because of that there is the respect has kind of translated into reverence and reverence to fear for teacher. But I think the whole reimagining of teacher as a facilitator, the education system as a facilitator of an individual's growth, that seems to be an interesting experience here, and I'm taking a lot from that.
I think one of the best things over here is that all professors have really, really high expectations from you. Matlab, substandard work to accept hi nahi karenge. But the good thing is that with the high expectation, there's also a lot of support available to you. So if you're finding some maths problems difficult, you can get into a study group. You can take help from TFs. So TFs are usually PhD students who help a professor to conduct their classes. They are always available for clearing doubts. So it's like having an aid. Every professor has that one person who takes care of these all the administrative things, so that the professor can totally focus on teaching. That's one thing that I feel is something that we can definitely take back to India, so that we can allow teachers more time to just teach. So yeah.
I would like to start by saying that it's American culture is fascinating around treating a child like an adult. So be it a pre-nursery student or nursery student or a K2 or K6 or K12 student, the adults, they treat children as adults, and that's what makes a lot of difference. By the time a student comes out of a school, they are treated with respect, and they know that they have to take care of their own deliverables in life and in school. So I guess that's something which I would like to bring back to our countries.
Since my peers have spoken about the relationship they share with the professors and the faculty here, I wanted to share about something that stood out for me was the peer learning that I felt like was lacking back home in India. In India, you would come into a class, the teacher would give a lecture, and you would go home, and that's when studying would start. Something that happens here is you are given pre-readings prior to the class. So you prepare for the class, you come into the class with that background knowledge, so there's this foundation, after which you can interact with your peers, your professor, coming from that background, which I thought was different and has helped me a lot in the process of learning.
We have a problem with some, I think we have an audio problem. It's okay now.
All right. I think one thing I would like to add with what everybody has said, and especially what Faesal said. About what I was saying, with the options, I think it forces you to choose, in the sense that it forces you to be aware of what you really want. And you have to think for a while. This is what I want to do. This is what is relevant to that. I think it gives you a choice of what you want to be. Otherwise, you're just going by the system and they're just moving you along and you're not thinking what you want to be at all. It doesn't have, and the menu is giving you, like, it's forcing you to choose and reflect on who you want to be and why you're doing what you're doing.
Can I share my fun fact? Maybe that will open up the discussion and make it a little bit less formal. So one of the most, I think, interesting experiences which I had with the American education system was that I remember a class here where the teacher came and he was wearing shorts and he was wearing a chappal, and he was not necessarily very formal with us, and we had the freedom to address him with his first name. And that was kind of a surprising thing for me, because back home, how we treat our teachers is like our teacher should be, he must be very well dressed, he must be having a uniform. I remember when I was director of school education, a lot of people told me that, oh, teachers should have uniform, in fact. Why are they not wearing uniforms? Come on. Teachers should be in the school at the right time, that's accepted. But we expect teachers to follow a certain code of conduct, certain moral behavior, that's okay. But we want also them to follow a certain maybe dressing, a certain way of talking, a certain way of distance from the student. I think those distances are not here. The teacher is focused on teaching and learning. Other things, what the teacher does, every other thing, what the teacher stands for, we have no concern with that. Teacher is giving his best, and the student is learning his best. I think that's something which I think we need to talk more about. How the teacher-student relationship here is a little bit more informal, how it's more friendlier than back home.
So I see it as rather over here, it's not a teacher-student relationship. It's mostly like everyone is in sense of equality. It's like everyone contributes, and even when you are being an international student, you bring your experiences and you contribute to the learning of the entire class. So teacher is person who has some experience, who can facilitate. The people around you are the people who contribute. So you play a very, very active role, and there is no hierarchy of like one person is the one who has who's the vessel of knowledge and other people are receiving. So everyone has their own share in co-creating the knowledge and learning that everyone has. Yeah.
I think each student here and each teacher and each faculty member, part of the team, of the teacher, of the professor, is like a separate entity who has equal say in, who has equal worth and value in the entire system. So you are not considered to be a student here, you are already considered to be a professional, and that you're already contributing to the field you've come here for. So you will be listened, your thoughts will be valued equally, and yeah, that's what we were saying, that no hierarchy, no formal. So it's totally normal if you're going on with a lunch with your professor. So yesterday what happened, we went on a school visit to Maine, and in our car there was a professor, and for half of the way I wasn't able to make out that she was a professor, and I was thinking that she's a teacher, she's a student. So because that would not happen, I think, in India. We would be too cautious if we are with our professors, or what to say, what not to say. We'll not be personally attached to them, and we would not know where are they coming from, what are the challenges they have faced in being where they are. So that here is very fluid. So I don't see any walls here between colleagues, between professors, between any kind of staff and support systems we have. So that really enables everyone to focus on what they want to, and not on what you're wearing, where you're eating. Mm-hmm. You're in a class and you will be eating your breakfast, your lunch, and nobody would care about it. The professor would work in any way.
This is a very important point. I think here you can come to a classroom. I think most of the classrooms, and you can bring your lunch with you. You can bring a cup of coffee with you. You can have the cup of coffee, and the teacher doesn't feel bad. Teacher is also carrying a cup of coffee with them. That makes the learning environment very informal. It makes it very friendly. I would also want you to talk about the focus on questioning, the focus on interaction, the focus on giving the students to ask more questions, to take control of the classroom, than the teacher taking control of the classroom.
I'll pause on like any one of people who would like to answer this.
So not just in universities and colleges, we just saw that school yesterday, and a lot of feedback coming from students who were like 15, 14 years old, and teachers incorporating that change in their overall process. That shows that the mutual respect is given to every individual, every student. It was fascinating to see how students were so energized and so empowered to challenge their own teachers and the process. And it's just not dictatorship in a school, in a K-12 school especially. So that's something which we should be looking into back home. That in K-12 schools, we should
tell
be
a bit more about what these K-12 schools are like, because I also want to understand how these K-12 schools are like our schools back in Calcutta.
Sure. So K-12 is essentially kindergarten to 12 standard.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Now, they have split these schools into three parts. It's elementary, secondary, and I think it's high school. High school is from 9th standard to 12th standard. Elementary is, I think, 4 to 6 or 7. And then elementary is are the younger kids. So they were implementing a competency-based learning, the school that we visited yesterday. And one of the biggest parts of that competency-based learning is building confidence and making sure that students are designing and building their own path to a competence. So teachers will tell you what you have to study, like you don't have a choice if you choose to study math or not, but you'll have a choice to design your path to learn math in your own way and what works for you and what makes it work or what makes it tick for you. So that's something which is pretty unique and pretty interesting to see in the schools here. And teachers are pretty receptive of the feedback, and they'll bring it back to the principal, and they will work to actually bring that change in the classrooms. So that's fascinating. That's something which I think culturally we have to bring back to our country.
I think one fun fact and also one way that has really changed my thinking is first week we have a shopping period where we can go listen to professors about the courses that they are offering. And for this one course, my professor came with his 5-year-old daughter. And she was really cute. But what he was really doing was saying that, number one, he was being a role model because as a father, he was saying, I have responsibility to bring she's sick, so she had to stay with one of her parents. He brought her to class, and that was completely fine. Yeah. And the other thing they tell us is that you have a life outside of your work and your academics, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to be ashamed of it, you don't have to completely hide it, and it makes the professor very relatable. So हमें मतलब उतना डर नहीं लगता है. He's also like a normal husband, father, whatever. So that was really nice.
Fun facts about classrooms there. What unique things you found?
I think most of it has already been spoken about. I think what's interesting is that there is no either or. There's not a strict choice between comfort and rigor. I mean, you could be comfortable and at the same time you could be applying rigor. And I think that's, it's high time that we understand that there are no strict codes of conduct. Only if you look like extremely studious with your attention panned to the professor that you're really learning. I think you could be really relaxed. You could really have all the mind space in the world that you want to have, and you could still learn and you could still be adequately rigorous, and nobody could really challenge that you're not paying attention. So I think that's a nice balance. That's a recognition of the fact that as people there is this not a strict frame that we can always be restricted to. Learning has to be a relaxed, learning has to be a fun, learning has to be a more meaningful experience, and for that there are a lot of efforts to make it rather more meaningful. In fact, in our departments, people openly, the teaching staff openly acknowledges that learning can sometimes really get to your head. So we had yesterday a speed dating event within our department, within which we just met all of our cohort members, 30-40 of us met in a room. There was a lot of free food, and we just had to quickly talk to each other and went out or discuss something. But it was, the only condition was that you're not going to talk about what did you do in the class or what do you want to do after the class. So anything beyond that you want to exchange with your peers, we have organized a space for you and you can just own it. Yeah.
In fact, back in our part of the world, what happens is, we believe in chasing the teachers. We believe that the teacher has to be always chased with a stick by maybe his chief education officer, by his ZEO, by his director, by his politician. Only then the teacher will be delivering. Only then the teacher will be serious about teaching. You guys have been to main school yesterday. Could you also tell us a little bit about what kind of monitoring is being done here? Because in my system, my experience, which I saw here, I didn't see anybody telling the teacher to teach. This is part of his inherent intrinsic value system that he has to teach and to teach the best.
I think not only in the main school, but I've visited about 3 or 4 schools in the recent past, in the past 1 month. And some of the best schools that stood out, and the principals had this one line: these teachers are amazing teachers. I've hired the best teachers possible, and they're doing a great job. They are designing the lesson, and they know how to make the student learn. And they know how to engage the student. My job is not to monitor the teacher or micromanage. The teacher is doing such great work that she should be allowed to work, but not really be monitored or like checked or assessed all the time. But also, I think the important point is to hire somebody who really wanted to teach in the beginning. And that was an important fact, that they wanted to, they had an interest in that teaching itself. And when they hired this kind of people, they didn't have to monitor.
But it's a very important point which I want to underscore so that we can talk a bit more about it. So here, the system is that the schools enjoy a lot of autonomy. The school autonomy is there. That means the school principal or the school headmaster, he has the freedom to hire teachers. In our part of the world, even the principal secretary does not have the power to hire teachers. There has to be a very detailed process. Here, the principal has the flexibility that you go into the market, you look for the best people, and then you choose those best people, and then they remain accountable to you, and then you take work from them. I think we can talk a little bit more about how school autonomy here works to the advantage of the system here.
So, just while we are kind of comparing the American and the Indian or the South Asian education system, I think, like Faisal pointed out, autonomy definitely adds a lot of value to, because it gives you choice, like how we were sharing a few minutes back, that because we had choice here, our experience of getting educated here is significantly different than not having choice. I mean, even that whole psychological motivation that I have, that this is what I have chosen for myself, kind of drives me. But at the same time, I just want to also bring to surface that just because it was autonomous, we shouldn't start believing that that's what is doing all the magic here. I also want to point to a small caveat here that the latest experiments the Obama government that did was to bring into teacher education a major reform, which was challenging this whole problem of autonomy. Okay. So the whole American education system is kind of based on this notion that once you hire the best teacher, you don't need to monitor them, and that has kind of turned into a problem for the American education system, because the assumption is leading to not really supporting teachers adequately, because you feel that you have the best ones, so they don't need support. Anybody can teach after, like, education does not need continuous development, continuous support and all of that. So current reforms are really trying to turn that upside down, and they're trying to see that performance has to be a measure of teaching. Just because I was really good at in my B.Ed kind of a training here, that does not kind of guarantee that I will be. So yes, there are really supportive structures which lead you to get into system people who are really interested, but that doesn't mean that that's kind of a solution, a Midas touch to all the problems that we. So I just wanted to bring this little bit of caveat also to the discussion.
My point of highlighting this was because it's also related to the kind of dignity which we give to the teachers. Sure. Because if you can trust your principal, if you can trust your headmaster with hiring his teachers, with running the affairs of the school, only then possibly we can develop a certain sense of leadership in that principal or teacher. And that's how I was connected.
I just wanted to add to Payal's point to say that actually here, like in recent years, test-based accountability has become very big. So if your students don't score above a certain percentage, you can be fired. And that's like in a way is good because you are like you need to keep performing. But the problem is it a teacher's fault if they are handling a very difficult classroom and their students are not able to reach that percentage growth? It's not their fault, and they could be fired for it. In India, if we had such a policy, teachers would revolt, right? It's not their fault. So each of these reforms have pros and cons, and we need to be mindful of that. ऐसा नहीं है कि अमेरिका में सब ठीक चल रहा है. They have very big problems.
There are problems here as well.
I think so. I would sort of challenge what you guys have just said, because in US the education system works in a very different way. Essentially, the state and the local governments, they are running the public schools. 70% of the school revenue or school funding is coming from the local governments, 20% is coming from the state government, and only 10% is coming from the federal government. So that means every district has a different policy, has a different style, and has a different framework for teachers to follow. And that's what brings me to the second point, which is practice what you preach. Now, if they're giving students the freedom to choose their path to learn, teachers have the freedom to choose the path to teach. And some teachers, they do have some ground rules to be in the class. And some teachers, they just are super flexible, and they can allow students to study remotely and then bring in their assignments in different formats, which is something which shows that we're giving the freedom not just to the students but to the teachers as well. And that comes from, again, it's a cycle that has been running for generations. Being a teacher is a great thing here. People choose to be a teacher, and as you can see in Harvard Graduate School of Education, we have around 600 students every year coming who are teachers who want to be in education, who have chosen this field, and they are doing a lot of research on improving this constantly. So I think that as a culture, they acknowledge the value of teachers, and they have tried proactively to give them the financial support that they need to be a good teacher, to be a good professional.
I think that's a very, very important point. I think if there's one value which I would want that gets kind of imported from this system, I'm projecting my voice, that's why I want to keep the mic there, it's okay. So I'm just trying to kind of give a perspective that it's not possible for us to kind of import education systems. And it's not desirable as well. We cannot say maybe American education system is the best, so let's get it there. A lot of people were asking about Korean education system. There was a question on the education system in Finland. I've been talking about the education system in Finland with my colleagues at the Kennedy School. It's not possible and desirable possibly because there's a cultural context to education. But then if there are certain values which we can maybe possibly get back to our country. So one of the important values would be what you talked about, that the kind of dignity which the teacher has here. Teachers are not accidental teachers. Teachers are teachers with choice. They want to become teachers. Yeah.
I would actually like to challenge what you said on that, because one of my courses is this. I've been visiting schools every week. We've been studying each school. We've been talking to the principals. We've been talking to the teachers and the students. And whatever I'm saying is based on this past 6 weeks of visiting schools, is that actually teachers do not have autonomy. It is extremely monitored. And there are a few schools, which they call pilot schools, which are all charter schools, which are supported by the district. The money is given by the district, but freedom is given. That is like one school in 100. Right. So those are the schools which have the.
We are talking about the autonomy of the school heads.
No, I'm going with the same.
And that depends on the district. So you might have visited a few schools in a particular district, and that's why I mentioned you can't generalize it because every district has a different policy. For example, DCPS, that's District of Columbia Public Schools, they run their financial systems in a very different way. They pay their teachers in a different way. They have like a key performance indicator for each of the teacher. How are the students doing, how the teachers are engaging with the community. And Boston Public Schools, they are running in a totally different way because they are funded in a different way, they're following a different framework. So that's what differentiates the overall model of American education, is that For example, in the districts of Maine that we visited yesterday, one of the principals, he said that my daughter is coming to my school, but I live in a different district. And those districts are doing things differently. But I want my daughter to come to my school because we are doing things differently. So they have a choice to do things differently, go to different districts and do their education and learning in a different way. And that's what differentiates, and that's what where the autonomy comes. Like local districts, they have the power to change and reform their own schools if they choose to. If parents are loud enough, the local government are very powerful to impact the education system for that local district. That's I think a cultural thing as well, but that's what happens.
I have a question. I want to ask you a question. I mean, we can endlessly debate about what's good here and what's bad there, and I don't think that's a point.
Exactly.
I think what you pointed out in terms of what is in terms of values, what is in terms of certain practices that we can take back to our country. So just because you've headed the education department in Kashmir, and I was just wondering that, like we're talking about teacher autonomy, so I'm just kind of interested in having a conversation around that. What would it really take in our country to give teachers some, if not, I mean, I'm sure 100% autonomy is going to be a long way. But what we could really do to give some sense of empowerment to our teachers, our principals. I was recently working with school coaches, and the government of Gujarat has recently done an interesting initiative. They've kind of opened up the post of the coaches to anybody. Anybody can sit in the exam and come to be a part of the coaches. And I spoke to many of them. They were very young, aspiring people who wanted to contribute to education. But 8 months down the line, they were like, "Kuch nahi hoga. We don't have the freedom." So I'm just wondering that if autonomy is something we are feeling here as a group that is really adding value to the system here, what is it that we can really do to bring it back? I mean, I think that would be that's a conversation that I think I'll be able to take something back from that. How is it that I go back and work that I can talk about autonomy, I can advocate for it, and I can really put in place some systems that you could do. So if you could share some of your experiences around that.
I think one of the regrets which I would possibly have for a long time would be that while I headed the education system in Kashmir, we could not open up the organizations. The structures which were actually implementing the education system, those structures were highly hierarchical, because we are actually in our country, we are actually living within a feudal system. We have a legacy. So the entire education policy structure, the entire departmental structure is extremely rigid. And in that rigid frame, the teacher doesn't figure anywhere. I think when I was heading the department, we were so much caught up with other issues, that teacher autonomy, the teacher dignity, the issues of bringing teacher back to the focus. I think that was not something which we were immediately looking at. Our approach of reaching to the teacher was that, okay, this teacher is not working. We had a very negative, cynical, pessimistic view of the world there. We would say, oh, this teacher is not working, so we need to chase him, we need to punish him. I think I myself made a mistake that maybe I would visit schools. I have never sought permission of the teacher before entering a classroom. I think this is one value which I realized here, that even if as a school administrator, even if as a very senior officer, you want to enter a classroom to inspect, you must first ask permission of the teacher, because that classroom space belongs to the teacher. It doesn't belong to you, even if you are the teacher supervisor. Second, once you visit the classroom, the bureaucrat or the school officer or somebody who is not exactly into academics, we get into the paraphernalia of education. We get into attendance, we get into midday meal, we get into uniform, we get into is the board cleaned or not, we get into are the chairs available or not. We are not actually focusing on the actual core of the education there. I think that's one critical problem, that we don't get our priorities right. And the day we start actually getting away from our hierarchical feudal structures, I'm sure we'll be able to focus on school autonomy, and we'll be able to trust our teachers. Mr. Mohammed Rafi Saab, He has been a director of school education where his government was also, I was checking on the comments, he also thinks that school autonomy is something, or the teacher autonomy is something that we need to work upon, and we need to actually trust our teachers. I'm not sure as a society are we ready to trust our teachers, because the trust on teachers also generates from a kind of societal trust on teachers. First, when the teachers have dignity in the society, only then the teacher will have dignity in the department.
Extending this conversation, one thing that I enjoy a lot over here is the independence that I have as a student. And now, even when we talk in terms of autonomy, bringing autonomy to the teachers itself is a far-fetched reality. Now, can we think of giving autonomy to the students itself? Because some of the classrooms that I've seen which have worked more effectively is where students also have a say in their experiences. In probably like we enjoy choosing our subjects. Can we give that same to the students over there? So in this bureaucratic system where we think of centrally monitoring, can such amount of decentralization be possible? Is it even a far-fetched utopian thought to think of that students also need to have the autonomy? And how can this be made a reality with the government system?
I think talking about autonomy is incomplete without talking about providing the skills and tools for autonomy. If you give autonomy to somebody who does not know what to do, that makes it more challenging.
It's very risky.
It is risky. Like if you give autonomy to a teacher who does not know how a good teacher works, then it's a challenge. And same goes for students. Now, if you give them a proper framework, and that's what the main schools were doing, they went to a research company, they brought the research done by that company, and they brought that framework, they trained the teachers, they trained the students, and once that training was done, they had the skills and the will to do and bring that change to the classroom. And now, if you talk to any student, there were around 2,100 students in those schools. If you talk to any one student, they will know the framework by heart. They will know what they're supposed to do, and they will autonomously do it. And that's what goes with the teachers as well. So I think asking about autonomy without thinking about how can we provide the tools and enable them and empower them to use those tools independently, I think that's something which is a bigger question. Like, what do we do to make sure that they are able to do what they want to do by themselves?
I have an example to share.
Yeah.
I think I was telling this to Viveka yesterday that like we all see Finland as a pinnacle example for a perfect system of education. And one thing which they do is give a lot of autonomy to their teachers. So one African country actually tried to copy that, and they gave too much autonomy to their teachers, but it drastically failed because, and later they realized that their teachers didn't even have basic competency levels to deal with autonomy, which a very even low performing teacher in Finland would have. So while this also brings to the aspect of how can we import policies or systems from other countries on to what level, and how these large-scale assessments like PISA and TALIS should be interpreted in a country's specific context. It's very easy to go and say, oh, Shanghai is performing highest on PISA, or this country is doing this, but we need to come down and ask what will suit in our context. And these policies or changes will not work in isolation. If we put the entire responsibility on the teachers of a school leader, or just on a teacher, or just on the students, the blame game kind of thing we do, that will not solve anything.
And I think to your point earlier that principals have the autonomy, they're trained to get that autonomy. They're not like following the status quo and they've been teaching for a few years and then they become the principal. No, it doesn't work like that. They have to be properly trained and educated to get to that level, so that they can, they have the freedom to do what they want.
We can maybe now talk about one idea which possibly we would want to see being implemented back there once we go back. So I'll start with mine. One idea which I think is something which is very important for us is how do we possibly reduce the stress level in the classroom? I had to recently send my kid to the school. I did show up for a lot of schools, and I think for all those months and weeks, I think one thing which we're worried about is that how will our kid deal with that stress in that classroom? Because it's very difficult to send your child to, child to an environment where we know that what kind of relationship is going to be between the teacher and the student and the other students. I mean, I remember myself, it used to be a very, very stressful feeling to go to the school. We don't want to go to the school because it's not fun anymore. So I think how do we make our schools fun? How do we make our classrooms interesting for the kids to go so that the kid would want to go to the school? You don't have to push him all in time. You don't have to beat him all in time that, oh, you have to go to the school. What kind of incentives can we maybe create within the classroom for the student and within the school for the student? So the student feels like going there and learning and making the learning environment a bit more friendly. I think that would be one reform which I would be very interested in getting implemented back home if I ever get a chance back in education.
Let me start with just an example of what I want to be. So just like how a seed grows, the seed grows into a tree, and tree can be the tallest only when its roots are the deepest. So I see education as where we learn about probably all the rivers in India or all the different soil types all over India, all the different resources. Do we know about what are all the resources near us? So are we aware of what are all the be it ponds or probably the scientific resources near us, and then think of taking it further? So unless we are connected to our immediate surroundings and we just think of taking for going to some other place, education will be only a tool to uproot you and take you to some other place, rather than apply the mechanical knowledge or the IT that you learn in bettering the world around you. So I will look at making the curriculum and content as relevant as possible to the immediate surroundings. Okay, I'll that is one change, making the curriculum as immediate and relevant to the people. Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so we have a question in the comments asking how can we get into Harvard or Stanford or any other top universities of the world with average grades. So I am here, I have very average grades, and I was never a top performer either in my school or my college, and most of the people we see around here are not top scorers. So what they value here is what you bring as a package, what skills you have, what you've done, and what you want to, why you want to study here. Basically, you need to have the clarity for that, so that X person is not studying Y because just because Z is studying this same thing. So here it's, you need to have that clarity, and that would show in your statement of purpose, would show in the people who will write the letters for you. So clarity is very important, and how you bring here what and what you want to study and then take it forward to do what you wish to. So that line of thought has to be very clear with you. And yes, definitely different components of applications need to be met, but it's not score centric here, especially in the US system. However, in other countries, I think in UK, I feel that there's a lot more pressure given on academic ability. But here, I think it's more of your overall capacity to be in a system and to contribute. So that really depends. And obviously, it's a very brief way to answer that question, but we could talk about that in detail in our any
Next
other
one,
session.
hopefully, yeah.
So we're talking about the same question.
We are talking about one idea which we would want to take forward.
I think, like I said in my introduction, that the fact that teachers and administrators are not really looked at as professionals, and even their preparation is not really geared towards preparing them to really act and behave like professionals. I think that's one area that I really want to contribute to, because like Murli was earlier saying, that can we start with giving autonomy to students, and Sanjil said that if they're not prepared for autonomy, it is not going to work. So I think I just really worry that if starting from student is the right space or not. I think I would really like to start at a place where, just imagine an autonomous teacher sitting in front of a scared teacher. student sitting in front of a scared teacher. That would be the most disastrous of setting that we can really create. So I think, yeah, teacher preparation, coach preparation is something that I'm really passionate about.
All right, so I'll start by kind of answering your question. One factor that, I mean, I faced the same thing when I was a kid. I was super scared to go to school. And one of the factors which impacts the liking or disliking or fear or happiness of a child is personalized learning. For example, if you ask a fish to jump a tree, and then you'll be graded on the basis of that, of course the fish will die of fear and die coming out of the water. But I want to build schools in India which are focused on personalized learning. Every student has innate abilities to do something or the other. We need to identify that, we need to cultivate that, and make them the best versions of themselves. I think that's something which schools are not doing. They're just standardizing everything and making sure that they're measuring everyone with the same stick. That doesn't work. Personalized learning, competency-based learning, and giving them a platform to grow is something that I want to do, and I'm building schools around that.
I think my takeaway is similar to Sanjal's. I've been doing this course called Universal Design for Learning, where we're studying how scientific neurodiversity and how it explains how every child is unique and how it is important for us as teachers to ensure that we are catering to the needs of every single learner. And through different principles and frameworks, of course, we've explored a lot of assistive technology, but we know in India we may not have as many resources, and therefore how can we as teachers be creative and still meet the need of all the students in our classroom who are so diverse?
I think my answer is a combination of what Murli said and the discussion about teacher autonomy. I ultimately want to see schools that are very connected to the student. And for that, we cannot have one standardized curriculum because everybody is so different. So how can we give teachers the autonomy to make sure that they can relate to the child and the world around them? And I want to see that in schools, and I want to have design schools like that. That's what I want to do. Thank you.
I think education is a subject on which the conversations can go on and on and on. And we have just tried to kind of introduce the subject today. And the kind of comments and the kind of participation questions which we saw coming to us, I think it has given us a perspective on the kind of conversation we would want to have next time as we meet. We are not going to be able to reply to all the questions and take all the comments. I'm also sorry that many people, many friends in Kashmir could not watch us because of the internet issues, but still I can see some comments from Jammu, Ladakh, from rest of the country, from other countries in fact. We had some very important people from the country also watching us who have a say in the education policy, in the media, and in public life. So I think this effort for today, I think it has been successful to an extent. We hope to carry forward these conversations in coming days. Those of us who could not watch us live can possibly watch this video after this. We'll be coming back to you with next podcast, possibly again on education next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.